Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. It still just amazes me that there are so many people who are really interested in books, and it's good to see you out here.
Yeah.
First of all, the question I had, affective memories, what the hell does that mean?
Okay. Affect is something that happens. Effect is something that you make happen. Your affective memories, the phrase comes from Stanislavski, a Russian, I'm sorry to say, but a great Russian, and the founder of the method, what we call the method, we actors. And affective memories are the memories that you bring with you from childhood, from babyhood. It's sort of Freudian, and then Freudian, is that the right way to say it?
Yeah.
Yes, Freudian. Okay, I've got it now, Freudian. So, yeah, it comes from that, and so whatever. Let me just. The lights are really bothering me. Never mind. To your affective memories are the things that you can transport into a character that you're going to play. Any kind of a character and any kind of memory can work together. It's an analog. And so what we are taught, what we learn if we study the method, is that I have to search my soul for the things that cost me, things that delighted me, things that are beautiful and terrible. And I have to be able to slide them into the character I play in order for it to be real when I'm acting it on stage. So is that?
That pretty much answers it.
Okay, I'm a dictionary, so.
As Debbie mentioned, part of your professional bio as an actor, but you're also a playwright and obviously an author of a book. You've won the New York Critics Circle Award, the Tony nomination, an Emmy Award, an ABA Silver Gavel, Dramatists Guild Award, Children's Book Award, and, yes, the Arkansas Entertainers Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Now,
my ears for Sybok from Star Trek are on the wall in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Okay.
Now, when I read the book, I was struck by several things. Yes, it's a bio, but it's also a really detailed instruction manual on how to act, and both as a career and as an art. And I would highly suggest if anybody, even at whatever ages you are here, are thinking of embarking on an acting career, that you give it a read just to see how it's done. But what was really amazing to me is just how good a writer you are. And not only that, but brutally honest. It sort of took my breath. I was clutching my pearls a couple of times.
You didn't have any pearls?
If I had, I would have used them. And it's not just a retelling of events, it's a character study, and you're the character you're studying. And as I said, it's almost like a nonfiction novel. How was it with that kind of self-honest examination?
Good question, and a difficult answer. I didn't know what I was doing when I started to write this thing. I wrote it essentially because my daughter, who I used to tell stories to my children, all five of my children, and they would gather in a room, and the older ones would kind of go, he's telling a story, and the younger ones would stick with me, and but Kate, who's here, would stick with me all the way. And when the sort of storytelling thing ended, it didn't end with Kate. And I would come into her room at night and sit on her very uncomfortable bed and It's an iron bed that she had, and start telling a story. And I would run out of story, and she would say, "What's next, Daddy? Tell me what happens next." And I was reading a thing about John Ciardi. I don't know if anybody knows who he is, but he translated
The writer. Yeah.
the Divine Comedy and the Inferno. And he told the story about when he was 5 years old, his nonna, who understood English but didn't speak it well, would invite him up onto her lap and to ask him to tell a story. And being 5 years old, he would start, and he'd run out of story very quickly. And she would say, "E poi," which in Italian means, "What's next?" And he learned to be a writer from that. And from John Ciardi, I learned to be a writer because I started the book not knowing where I was going, just knowing that something in me said, I have to talk to my children, because my daughter also said, "Dad, we know a lot about your mom, our mom, but we don't know a lot about your family." So I thought, okay, I got to tell about my family, which is very similar to Lucie's family. In many ways, it was dysfunctional as hell.
That's a good segue to my next question.
Okay.
So born in Fort Smith, Arkansas in 1934, you say, with deep inchoate feelings that there must be a better life somewhere.
Yes.
How did you know?
I did not know how I knew. I grew up Catholic, and Catholicism teaches that there's another better life. But it also says there's a really bad life if you're bad. And I just couldn't face the idea of hell. I thought, how can that be? But I know there's got to be something better. I was in the Ozarks growing up, part of my life, and there was nothing there except beauty. It was a beautiful place. Arkansas is a beautiful place. It's too bad what's happening there right now, but it's the lowest on every metric that there is. But anyway, sorry, Arkansas, I love you. But anyway, so I realized that there had to be something else. If the mountains were so beautiful, if my heart was longing for something, you know, when you're a kid, you long for something, and when you're an adult, you long for something. You get to be 90, you're longing for different things. Maybe get off the cane. But anyway, I started to write, and I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to tell the story, and the only thing I knew I had to be was completely honest, which, as I began to get through my story, I realized how much I had been a bad boy in life. I realized
You were honest about all that.
Yes.
I thought incredibly honest.
Yes.
It started with your descriptions, I think, of your abusive household. Your father was an alcoholic,
Yeah.
severe alcoholic.
Yeah.
In fact, you recall a story where once he had to move town. The family had to move towns because he'd pulled a knife on a coworker, and you actually came to blows with your father over that.
I did. Well, no, it was his smashing my mother in the mouth. Yeah, I had a big fight with my father when I was 14, and I wanted to kill him. And so it's in the book, and I think I told what it was.
Okay, yeah, great. Now, on the lighter side of things, you describe yourself as the class clown, which is not uncommon with your type.
Yeah. Well, you can see a hint of that now, I guess.
And it's when you first started writing, and I believe the opi that you wrote were called Stenkenfrein and 8-Ball Julius Caesar
Yes.
as
Yeah.
class plays.
Yes, yeah. I wrote sketches for assembly, and I was being taught by the nuns, the Sisters of No Mercy. But in my case, they always seemed to take a little soft spot. The two nuns running the high school were my mentors, actually, and but anyway, when I was a little bit younger, I wrote these crazy sketches, which were horrible, just horrible, but they were funny, and I always knew I could get a laugh somehow, and so I wrote these things, and they always had a splashy ending, like a Hollywood movie, and in one I tore down the drapes of the auditorium, and in another one I went to the chemistry laboratory and stole some magnesium for a flare, and I put a piece of cardboard on the absolutely lovely library table of the nuns, and I lit it at the end of the scientific one, and then it flared up like a magnesium flare, and I dropped an MD-80 in it. So it was very satisfactory to my fellow slackers in the audience. They loved it, and the nuns did not love it, and my father did not love it, and my father told me after that, he said, "What are you trying to do? Playing around with this dumb cluck you're working with." I made a mental note, he's not a dumb cluck. And then he said, "You're not going to be an actor. You don't have any talent, and you don't have any good looks. So you have no chance for that. So what the hell are you trying to do?" And I didn't understand, as nobody my age would understand, that was some kind of love thing that he was talking to me by saying this. And everything he said, right up to the end of his life, David, when he was dying in Chicago in my sister's house, he was in a fetal position, and he asked my mother to give him his half and half, which was bourbon and water. And my mother, the codependent, was pissed as hell, but she did it, Hillary, and he always had to have that. And anyway, he turned to me, and I was there at the foot of the bed, and he said, "Is your insurance paid?" And I said, "Yes, Dad." And I left the room, and I thought about 30 years later, what he was really saying was, "I love you."
Wow.
You know,
Now, you described yourself as a slacker.
Yes.
Now, assuming you still are not that, who pulled you out of that?
Who pulled me out of that? One nun.
That's what I thought.
One sister, Sister Matthew, was the English teacher. And I was in summer school every summer, and I didn't know why, except my grades sucked. But I was in a class of six boys, me and 5 others, and I had been given a poem by either Walt Whitman or Emily Dickinson, I don't remember now, to read at the meeting. Anyway, I did not read it. I didn't care about it. And so when my time came, Sister Matthew said to Mr. Luckinbill, I got up and did a parody. And my friends laughed a lot. Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? And so I saw Sister Matthew coming down the aisle. And when she got to me, she hit me with a right cross that knocked me out of the chair onto the floor. And I landed there laughing. And I looked up at Sister, and there was not a hint of anger. There was just an Irish twinkle in her blue eyes. And she said to me, "Don't laugh at the words of poets. Poets matter. Words matter. If you don't know how to communicate, you're not worth much." And she turned around and walked away.
Yeah. That's great.
That saved my life.
Yeah. And then not much longer after that, well, there were a few incidents in between, but you were off to the University of Arkansas.
Yes.
Where you studied, medicine.
Yes. Yes, I studied medicine.
How'd that go?
From a arm's length.
How'd that go?
How'd that go? David, you know how it went, but
I know, but these people don't know how it went.
No,
Doctor.
No. My mother was determined that it would be Dr. Luckinbill will see you now. You know, she saw me in a white coat, and the nuns saw me as a reporter or a journalist of some kind. And I didn't know what I wanted to be. I just was a lost kid trying to find a way to be something in this life. But so I tried to be a doctor, and I failed everything. I failed it in junior college, and when I went to the university, I failed every single subject, and I failed organic chemistry twice. And so I ran to the professor who had given me the double DF. And he, of course, was, I didn't realize he was a pianist as well. He was playing some Chopin or something, and I could see his bald head inside the open windows of his beautiful house, which I envied. And I didn't think I belonged in that set of these accomplished people. But anyway, he came to the door, and he said, "Yes, Luckinbill." I said, Sir, please help me, my mother will kill me." And I was actually doing Oliver Twist. I had one of those shirts on, you know, that you can wipe your nose on. And I was and I realized immediately that was the wrong approach. Because he said, "Come in." And I sat down on the piano bench, and he sat on something else. And he said, "Mr. Luckinbill, you have entertained us very well this year. You don't know, but I have eyes in the back of my head, and I saw the excellent imitation that you did of me." He said, I think I've actually learned something from your imitation of me, because I've realized that I need to change some of my teaching techniques." And I thought, oh, light, there's light there. And then he said, "But I want to tell you something that you're not going to like." I didn't like it. He said, "You don't belong in the sciences, son. You belong in the performing arts." Well, you might have thought that would be, oh, good, I get to be in the performing arts. But instead, my heart fell down into my feet. I knew that I was disappointing my mother. I knew that when I told her, I'd get the look, you know, the mother look, and then I would get the father look. And so by that time, my parents had done an Archie and moved to California, where my older sister was. And so I had to go back to Oakland and tell my mother that I had done this, and I had failed. And so she said, "I have already arranged an aptitude test for you at the University of California at Berkeley, and we're going on the bus tomorrow morning." And we jumped on the bus at 6:45 in the morning and went down Telegraph Hill all the way to Berkeley, to Sattergate, walked through to a Quonset hut where they were giving aptitude tests.
And that test said?
That test said, well, I failed. I failed an aptitude test. And I did it because the guy said, listen, the math tests, I see you're not very good in math. The math things you can just sort of guess at if you know any of them. And the others, there's one where you imagine yourself in space, and you draw pictures that will connect. Anyway, so when I got to that, I drew pictures of birdhouses and airplanes and all kinds of things happening in a wonderful air that was on the white piece of paper. And so I failed that. And my mother, we went back on the bus, back to Oakland, and I saw that my mother was saying her rosary like this. And she was white-knuckling the rosary. And I said, Mom, don't worry. And she looked at me, and she said, Larry, you have just got to have a chance. Well, you can see this is very moving to me right now. And the subtitle of my book, by the way, is How Chance and the Theater Saved My Life.
Yeah. That's great.
Is that what you wanted? That was
what
the
I
answer.
want. Is that what you wanted?
That's the right answer.
No, it's fine. That's the right answer. There are no right and wrong answers. Then you went back to university. You got involved in the theater department, and you had a big discovery, which you wrote in giant letters. Acting is hard.
Yes.
And it reminds me, I know a lot of people who want to be actors, but very few of them want to become actors.
Yes.
And it's because it's hard. And why was that such a revelation to you?
Well, I was not used to doing hard work.
That'll do it.
I was not used to doing any work. I was lazy, actually. I didn't want to do. I tried to chop spinach in Arkansas. I lasted 2 hours. I tried to work in a grocery store. I lasted 1 week, and so I was not fit for work. I was not fit for anything but acting. So.
So there you go. But nevertheless,
that's a laugh.
Nevertheless, you threw yourself into it, and you became quite serious about it. And, as you describe in your book, quite angry.
Yes. Well, I was angry. I didn't realize what I was angry at, but I had a furious temper, a terrible temper. And it still can come out once in a while, but it comes out now, it's like 90 anger. I'm kind of mad. Yeah. Whatever. Okay. Next time. Yeah. I will. Don't worry. No, I'll clean it up. That kind of stuff. No, but it took me a long time, folks, to dig in and find out who the hell I was and why the hell I was and why I was, while I was getting successful as a performer, I was messing up my life pretty badly. And I even began, after first swearing that I would never be like my father, who just couldn't do without his booze, I lost myself, and I started to drink my father under the table.
Wow.
And sort of like Richard Cork Leg. It's a Brendan Behan story, and Dylan Thomas died just outside my door in New York on the street. Wow. And I knew what alcoholism was, and I was scared of it, and yet I was never going to get drunk. I would just drink, and I would drink a whole bottle of rum and not be drunk. So I thought. And, anybody in AA knows what a bullshitter I was. And so I had this anger at my father and at my mother, too, because she was a codependent. I didn't realize any of this, of course, until I was until Tuesday. Yeah. No, it took a long time. It took a really long time to find it out about myself. And that's when I really took the guts of what I was writing about and knew where to go with it, because I was telling on myself.
Yeah. Anger aside, or maybe anger included, you then found your way to the Catholic University of America.
Right.
And you met a fellow there named Mart Crowley.
Right.
Mart Crowley.
Mart.
Who would later figure in your career. And after more study and several roles, you finally took a tour which took you to NYC. And you were in the role of a 90-year-old man.
Yes. Yes.
And
I was such an old man. Oh, God.
Was he older than you are now?
Yes.
Okay.
117.
Okay. And someone saw you do that, and you got an agent.
I got an agent.
Yeah. And
We were in Carnegie Hall, in the lower place in Carnegie Hall where Isaac Stern's rehearsal studio was. It was abandoned, but our company managed to get the play. Oedipus Rex was my first play in New York. It's not on most people's good to see list.
now, based on that, you got some interviews, and my favorite one that you relate is you went to see the TV producer Herman Shumlin.
Oh, God, yes.
Do you remember what he said to you?
Yes. I was living in Harlem in a one-room that I rented from a kid that was working as in RCA. Anyway, that's my wife is saying, get to the point. So what I had to do in those days, if you didn't have a token, you had to walk. And New York is a walking place. And I didn't mind that at all. And so I had my bag full of my pictures, which said, oh, this guy is a really good actor. And my resume, which said, no, he's not. Yeah. But anyway, I was handing out pictures and resumes to every producing office that there was. And it was hot. And I had a couple left. And I saw an open door just off 50th Street and 6th Avenue. And I went up. It said, Herman Shumlin, producer. And I got to the top of the stair, and the door to the office was open, and there was a very old man, bald head, sitting there typing. And he was not a good typist. He was a two-finger typist, and he was going, fuck, shit. No, shit, fuck, shit, fuck. I wondered what the words were, but I pulled out my picture and my resume, and I stood there in the doorway with 1 foot in the office and 1 foot in the hall. And I said, sir, I know you're doing somebody's producing in this office is producing a show about an Irish kid, and I was in summer stock last year, and I did an Irish accent, and I'm pretty good at it, and I'm thinking I could be at least have a reading, an audition for this. Fuck shit, no, just fuck shit, fuck. Didn't even look at me, so I slipped the picture next to his typewriter, and that got his attention. And he turned and he looked at me like this. And then he said, you're not right for anything.
A more succinct assessment I've never heard.
No, that was, he nailed me. And,
so you finally make it to Broadway,
yeah.
Your debut in A Man for All Seasons.
Yes.
And then you continued getting roles on Broadway and regional theater, and a short stint on TV's The Secret Storm.
Yes.
which I heard before it was sponsored by X-Lax. It was called The Storm Beneath.
No. The Storm Within.
The Storm Within, okay.
And they changed it to The Secret Storm.
Then your friend from Catholic University of America, Mart Crowley, comes to you with a play he wrote. It was called Boys in the Band. And for those of you who don't know, it's about 8 homosexuals having a birthday party. And Nine. Well, one of them wasn't having much fun.
No.
So many of your people around you warned you not to do this.
Yes, well, my agent was a lady who was gay, and she, when I told her I was going to do the play, she said, well, there goes your career. You're just beginning. What are you, crazy guy? What are you doing this for? And I said, I'm doing it because Mart is my friend, and because it's a good play. Okay? So I did it, and the first thing we did was a workshop way down in a part of New York that was a senseless killing neighborhood, and we did 7 performances for nothing, and the next morning after this, it was January, it was 1967, and it was 6 degrees. It was so cold. And I was walking to the bank with my television check, $135. And I saw this enormous line of people coming out of my street, where the theater was, up to Houston Street, west into the village. And it was composed of couples of men. And overnight in New York, the telephone brought 400 or 500 people out for 50 seats. And as I passed the theater, I heard people begging for seats. When is it? No, we don't know when if it's gonna go again. I'm sorry. No, it's sold out. There's no seats available. And so we did the play, and we had only had 2 weeks rehearsal, and it was very spotty, and the director came back afterwards, and everybody was like, what was it? How were we? And he said, bumpy. And anyway, from that,
You subsequently went to London.
Yes, we did. First, we did 2 years in off-Broadway in New York, and then we went to London with the company. And we were received differently in London we were in New York. The play is a very funny play. It's also very serious because it really shows what the closet, if anybody has ever heard of that. You heard of the closet? Anybody? Raise your hand. Yes. Well, the closet was a very dangerous thing. If you were gay, you had to be in the closet, and especially in the South where I grew up, you could be killed, and worse. And so everybody knew about the closet who was gay at that time, and they were all suffering from it because when you're in a closet, you start reacting the way that you wouldn't react normally if you were a free person, if you had freedom in your life to be who you were. And there were two of us who were straight in the company, and I used to say that we were assuming the position.
That's not in the book. That's hilarious.
Anyway, London didn't like us much, but anyway.
Yeah, but then subsequently there was a film.
Yes, and we came back and we did the film, and we did the first. There's a film of it that was released in 1970. It was a success, but it was a cult success, and it's still being played around here in Palm Springs. I've been asked to, talk about it in 2 different versions of the showing.
Yeah, very, very successful, very important piece.
Yes,
and good for you for having the balls, for want of a better word, to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, there's just one last thing to say about it, which is that they did a revival of it a few years ago, and what it was missing, all of the people in the revival were successful gay actors from Hollywood. And the thing that was missing was the fear that was imposed upon gays from the closet.
So.
Because it was as if it didn't exist anymore. Well, it does exist.
But that proved to be, rather than a detriment, sort of a boost to your career. A couple of exceptions.
Yeah.
But
yeah. For me.
You worked around. And finally, you're cast in the Broadway version of Chapter 2, the Neil Simon play.
Yes.
And another actor in that show invited you to meet a friend of hers, and that friend was Lucie Arnaz.
You just gave it away.
I'm sorry.
And first, do we want to talk about Otto?
Well, I don't know.
No, okay. I did a movie for Otto Preminger.
I think if we had another 15 minutes, we maybe would.
Yes, all right. So let's go.
Talk about your wife and your marriage.
Okay. All right. I may cry.
Uh-oh.
I walked into Joe Allen's. I had just been divorced. It was a miserable divorce, and it was all my fault. And I was pretty low on myself, and I was struggling I was actually praying to be 6 years old again and pure and clean and an altar boy. Anyway, I had 2 children by that time, Nicholas and Benjamin. Benjamin's here, right there, and he's listening all ears to this. Anyway, I walked into Joe Allen's, and the new girl who was worried about her performance because she heard that Neil Simon tended to fire people pretty quickly if they didn't like him. And I was taking a chance because you're not supposed to talk to other actors about how they're supposed to do the show, So I saw that she was talking to some other lady, and the lady had wonderful frizzy hair, and it was bouncing because she was laughing. And I walked up to her, and Marilyn, the girl, said, "This Lucie Arnaz, this is Laurence Luckinbill." And I sat down and fell in love. Well, you say you can't fall in love that fast. And of course it is true, but it's also not that you don't fall in love. You really see something in the other person's eyes that changes you immediately about your approach to them. And my approach to women had been to objectify them. And I'm sure that the women out there are saying, yeah. And I didn't realize that I was objectifying anybody. I was just a hungry young man. And I looked at this young woman looking at me, and I did not see anything to objectify in her. I didn't look at her tits. I didn't look at her butt. I'm saying what I saw was a human being in front of me who had something going on in her underneath her charm and her beauty that was something that was also going on in me, which was, who am I? What can I do in this life? What should I be? And so we became friends. And it was a very long courtship of about 3 minutes. We were married about 6 months later. Yes, and had our first child 6 months after that.
And how long has that been? You've been married?
What?
How long have you been married?
45 years.
Yes. Okay, now I have to ask this.
Yeah.
How was it with the in-laws?
Well, the story is in the book. And the story of the love affair is in the book, and the story of how it went down with Miss Big Red is a different story, and it's different between her and her husband. When I met Desi in Hollywood, I was in New York and I came back to Hollywood. Lucie was there, and there was Desi in her house, and he came up to me and put his arm around me and said, "Welcome, amigo."
So sweet, so sweet.
It's just like that.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, that was Desi. And Lucille, I never really got on with. Was not for lack of caring or on my part, and I think she didn't know what to do with me because I didn't do the dance. I didn't do the Lucie dance, you know. I was not equipped to do that. I read books. I do other things. I spend more time in my head than most actors I know. And I just couldn't charm and make people laugh on cue.
Well, I find that hard to believe. So, lots of TV, lots of movies, and then Star Trek comes along.
Correct.
Quite a satisfying role, it seems, although I never saw you do it. So.
Okay. Well, it's a good movie, and people, Star Trek fans out there will know that Bill Shatner, who directed it, took a really big beating on the internet and other places because people didn't like his movie. And really, they weren't saying that they didn't like the movie. They were saying they didn't like Bill. Bill has an ego the size of Mars. But he is also a decent man, and he's a good friend of mine. And I'd say this not because he's a good friend, but because he's a good director. He directed a good movie, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, which it wasn't, but but it was a very charming movie. And I was the one guy who had never been in a Star Trek movie, didn't know a damn thing about it, but I did know that the character I was playing, Sybok, had something very special going on with him. First of all, he had a magic power. He said, "Let me take your pain," and he would put his hand on your forehead and take your pain away. And so that was something that was very unusual for a Star Trek character. Anyway, Bill wanted me because I had also done Lyndon Johnson for television, and he said I was in a hotel one night, and it was Sunday night. I couldn't get anything on television to watch, so I turned it on, and there you were, being Lyndon Johnson, and I want you to do Sybok. And
of course.
And the producer said, "Well, Bill, maybe he should read the script first." And he said, "No, I want him to do this." So I was really in, which was very unusual in Hollywood. You rarely get a director who says, "You're it, pal." You know, usually it's, "Well, we're interviewing 600 people, and we'll find you." But anyway, Bill said, "You're in now. We'll have lunch. I'll call you, and I'm going to find out exactly how you want to do this part." And I said, "Great." So no call. Finally, he calls me. It was about 6 in the morning. And he said, "Meet me at the juice bar in Santa Monica." And so I go down there. Our lunch turned into a juice bar, standing up. And he said, "Tell me how you intend to do this character." And I said, "Yes, Lenin." And he said, "John?" I said, "No, Vladimir Ilyich." And he said, "The Russian?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Okay, well, here's the deal. Lenin believed that he could change Russia and make it better, free the serfs, do these good things. But then he reached many obstacles from all of the different tribes that were there, and so he became a dictator. And that's what happened to Sybok. Sybok has a power to take your pain away, but when he steals the enterprise, he becomes a bandit, and he becomes outlaw. And from that point, his life changes. And the end of the movie, and Leonard and I were not friends, but we were not enemies. Leonard had wanted to do a duo part, Sybok and Spock, because I was his brother. And so that didn't work out. Bill didn't want that. So anyway, at the very end of the movie, Spock and Sybok do this to each other because I then sacrifice myself to the God that I have believed in. I know I'm making you crazy with
No. It's very interesting. It's very
junk,
interesting.
but it was the end, really a good ending to the movie.
Yeah.
And I was just up in Vegas explaining all this to people in a convention, and people were really, really smart people. Are Star Trek fans?
Of course they are.
Yeah.
Of course they are.
Well,
We have a few minutes left, but
Okay.
and I'm going to give short shrift to your one-man shows. You did one-man shows where you portrayed Lyndon Johnson, Clarence Darrow, Teddy Roosevelt, and Ernest Hemingway.
yes. What do you want to know?
Well, actually, what I want to know is about your children.
About my children?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, the discovery of these four men, which I call great Americans, then that's not my children.
No. Oops, we took a left-hand turn there.
These four men were actually the backbone of the 20th century of American social justice thinking. Right? We get Medicare, we get civil rights, we get no death penalty, and then finally, Teddy, we get women's liberation, and then with Hemingway, we get someone who brings the American language into some kind of magical place. Okay, so now my children.
Perfect segue.
Okay, my 5 kids. The oldest is, guess what, 55 years old, and that's Nick, and he is working up in Vegas with EDM, Electronic Dance Music Company, and he's I can hardly ever think of this, the marketing and art director of this company called the Electric Daisy Carnival, okay, which is a huge, you don't even know how many dollars it costs to get into these raves and how many thousands of people go. But it's a fantastic business. Anyway, he's a great guy, and we're good friends. And my son Ben is an all-purpose artist of every kind. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy, and he has written a sci-fi book called Factory, and it's very good, and he's tinkering with it now, and also tinkering with drinks at Zim's down in Palm Springs to make a living. And then there comes Simon. Simon is the first of our children. The other 2 came from Robin Strasser, who was my first wife. And Lucie and I had Simon, Joseph, and Kate. And Kate is here, and Joe can't be here because he's got 2 children. They're busy, and Joseph Simon is an artist, a very, very wonderful artist, and Joseph is a first-rate sound technician an engineer, and Kate is working with her mother at this moment to produce two very large Lucille Ball, Lucie Arnaz projects. And Kate is also a super intellect who I turn to for all kinds of things, especially to be corrected.
Great.
Anyway, that's my kids.
We have 30 seconds left.
Oh, good.
With your permission, I'm going to read something that you wrote to me.
All right.
Is that
Thank
all
you.
right? Okay. We moved from the Northeast to hot Southwest. Mountains, desert, our kind of folks around. Goal, now, get me to 100, please, with a brain and 2 legs working, as long as I am in service to my art and my family and my dear wife, Lucie. Laurence Luckinbill, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Great.
Thank you.